It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetzky, Andy Kamenetzky. Holy, woo, that was fun. A few people have pointed this out. Mark Stein of the New York Times on Twitter as well. Nobody's getting fired, Andy. Nobody's getting fired for the play, and I don't care how powerful LeBron James is. Nobody's getting fired for the play-in. It's fun.
No, the NBA may call up LeBron and say, look, we will give you a list of people that you can fire. You don't have to know who they are. You don't even have to know what they did.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're going to accept the fact that LeBron James wants them out, and there's not really much they can do. But this guy, however, who ran the play-in, he's safe, and you're just going to have to deal with it.
Right. Phil over in idea making, he's safe. Wow. 103-100 is the final score at Staples Center on Wednesday night, and the Lakers escape in a game that was scary for every reason we thought it might be. We'll break that one down, and just so much going on there. Everything from, the LeBron versus Steph thing to AD at the 5, which is something I think we'll probably get into a lot in our second segment. And we'll take a look before we're done at the Phoenix Suns, who the Lakers will now play. It's official. That series starts on Sunday. And by the way, we'll be previewing that with Brendan Clean, who hosts the Locked On Suns podcast. We'll be doing that for Friday. So all of that is coming up. Remind you, too, to sign up for our YouTube channel, which is live. Locked On Lakers is on YouTube. And do want to let you know, Andy, as well, you and everyone else, that today's episode brought to you by Michelob Ultra at only 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. It's only worth it if you enjoy it.
I'll tell you what was funny, Brian, that when LeBron ended up hitting that go-ahead 3, and this was like a minute or so after he had been poked in the eye by Draymond Green on a drive to the basket, LeBron really was having difficulty seeing. He actually had to, during the timeout, get what looked like Visine or something like that in his eyes.
I think they were wiping it out with saline and stuff. And he said you could see 3 rims. He shot at the middle one, which was probably smart.
Yeah, no, it's the way I think medically you should go about doing this. But that play where he ended up hitting that 3 that ultimately put the Lakers on top, it was off a totally, shoddily busted play that the clock really running down, KCP had to heave that thing out like 34 feet. It was measured to LeBron, who had no choice but to throw the thing up with, very fittingly, Steph trying to close in on him. LeBron ends up hitting that thing, and that possession, which ultimately won the game for the Lakers, felt very emblematic of the entire game for the Lakers.
All right, let's
finish in terms of just getting through the damn thing.
It was, first of all, look, the Lakers, they did not play a particularly good game. I think I think we can both agree this was not the Lakers' finest hour. To credit Golden State,
not in the first half.
No, God, no. We'll get there, but I to do the cliches, credit Golden State. They played hard, and this is a team that was 15-5 coming into this game over their last 20 games. The Warriors have been playing very well, and from a selfish standpoint, I really hope they beat Memphis on Friday, because I'm not done watching Steph for the season. I don't want to be. The Lakers' 3 offensive stars, their best scorers in AD, LeBron, and Dennis Schroeder, were 4 of 28 in the first half, and the 4th one came right at the end of the half.
Yeah, it was 13 points between them. Yeah, on that 428 showing, they were brutal.
It was terrible, and everything that you worry about with the Lakers in terms of kind of how this is going to go going forward, and how deep can they go in the playoffs, and Is it their year? And all that stuff, Andy. All of that happens kind of at the beginning of this game. And it's like you see, wow, their offense really sucks right now. It's like it's terrible. And it's not even that just guys were missing open shots, because they were, but it was very stagnant. There wasn't a lot of movement. From my perspective, it certainly seemed that way from the Frank Vogel's pregame comments and the way he was moving in the first half. That LeBron, I felt like LeBron was holding as much as he could for the stretch and the second half, and that it was somewhat limited. And that's a concern, obviously, LeBron's health. It just everything. But the flip side is they played really good defense. And even in the first half, the only reason they were in that game was because, Andy, the defense was really good.
Yeah, it's interesting with LeBron. And ultimately, I don't want to go too far down what could be, I guess, to some degree, either an interpretation or semantic argument, just because we don't truly know. And they're going to have, thankfully, 4 days off. Which
those are really important that they got this win.
Right,
they don't
exactly.
play on Friday.
Exactly. They've got Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They don't play till Sunday afternoon. So I guess about 3.5. LeBron, to me, didn't seem so much like he was physically laboring in this game in the first half, as much as he was just kind of out of rhythm or just not in the flow of it. And the reason I say that is just because he played a really physical first half. He got 4 offensive rebounds. He was driving to the basket a lot. I thought he was really lively. So I agree with you that there might have been some degree of preservation going on in terms of just how much he could truly look to turn it on. But even though I know this wasn't the case, Anthony Davis, to me, in the first half, looked to me more like a guy who was struggling through an injury than LeBron actually did.
Look, I will agree with you that he was very physical. I will not agree with you that he was particularly lively. I don't think this was I think he was engaged in the sense that LeBron is, in the way he is capable of controlling games just with his passing, and can find ways to be, to use his strength, to use his size, and do all that. And he was doing that. But I don't think he was lively. But I think that I would say it was the ankle. AD, to your point, just sucked. I mean, I think we've seen it over the course of the year. We've seen it at points last year where Davis just, I don't want to say he's not engaged, because that makes it sound like he doesn't care, doesn't recognize the importance of the game. For whatever reason, that aggression isn't there. Like he is not the one that's forcing.
Well, he offered some reasons after the game. He said that he needed to be more patient, and he started doing that more in the second half. And he gave Draymond Green, I think, a lot of respect for the way he played,
which he should. And I think overall, not just Draymond, but overall, their defense was very good against him.
Right, but he pointed out Draymond specifically in terms of Draymond Green's physicality and the way he's so smart with how he goes about doubling AD if he's not the primary defender. And, that at the end of the day, like, I think he had to just get a little more comfortable with what was happening in this game. And he also, I thought it was really interesting too. AD talked about this, but so did Alex Caruso. I think Wes Matthews may have mentioned it as well. Like the tension of this game, I think, got to all of these guys to some degree. Like, I don't mean like they were overwhelmed by it. They've obviously been through moments bigger than this, but this was something that they have not played for these type of stakes in a while. And to be perfectly honest, as much as I know they believe in themselves broadly, they've had very little time together to demonstrate tangible evidence of what they're capable of doing. And they were going up against a team that was really playing well. And I think it was Wes Matthews who pointed out these guys have already played the Warriors their equivalent of what the Lakers did tonight, because they had to do that against Memphis in order to get that 8 seed, which is much more valuable than the 9.
They've been doing this for a month and a half. The Warriors have essentially been playing to get themselves back into the play-in game, like into the top 10, just so they'd have a shot at it. And then, from there, can we get into the top 8 so we don't have to, win or go home? They've been playing these sort of high leverage games for a while. And as you say, the Lakers, have barely been playing. So, I mean, that does make a difference. I do think, to be fair to AD, you have to give the Warriors defense credit. There's a reason that Draymond Green is a defensive player of the year candidate. And there's a reason that Golden State's defense over the last 25 games has been as good as it's been. And they're very smart. They've got a lot of guys who can do a lot of things, and they had a great scheme against Davis. But the second half turned. And one of the reasons it did was that the Lakers made a change in their lineup. And it's one that a lot of fans were hoping to see. I think we all expected to see at some point. And we will talk about that next.
Locked On Lakers brought to you by rockauto.com. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models out there, it is impossible to stock all the parts you need in a traditional chain storefront. And why would you spend 30%, 50%, 100% more for the exact same auto parts at a chain store or new car dealership anyway, when you can get it for far less at rockauto.com? Rockauto.com always offers the lowest prices possible rather than changing prices based on what the market bears, like the airlines do. Like, don't get me started on the airlines. That is legal extortion.
I once got on a flight,
racket.
Andy. I once got on a flight. I swear, right before I sat down, they're like, "That'll be another $100."
Yeah. Oh, they
give it.
I've had a
Give
guy go up to me just asking for money. I'm like, "What's this about?" He's like, "I'm shaking you down.
I'm with the airlines.
This is the airlines.
That's what we do."
Yeah. He's like, "Do you want your legs to remain unbroken?
Yeah.
Give me money." That's what they do. RockAuto.com, though, they're a family business. Unless, of course, as we always say, the airlines want to sponsor this podcast, in which case
we're going to find out real quick how closely everyone listens to these.
RockAuto.com, family business, serving auto part customers online for 20 years. Everything from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck, right locked on in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Rockauto.com.
You know, it's funny, Andy. The first half on my personal list of things that were problematic with the Lakers, I didn't really have Andre Drummond on there. I thought he was fine. He took one shot. He made it. He played 10 minutes. He had 5 rebounds. He blocked 2 shots. He was sort of spry on defense and all that. I didn't really think Montrezl Harrell was necessarily a problem in his 10 minutes. He had a bucket. He had 3 rebounds. He had a steal. Drummond was -5. Harrell was -2. That sounds bad until you see that Schroeder was a -16.
Well, the whole team was minus.
Right, but I was
They
just
were all
saying,
minus.
they were all minus. The whole,
I mean,
the whole damn band was white.
Basically,
but
the more you played, the more minus you were.
Correct. But I'm just saying, but he was a -5. Sounds bad, except that you look at it and it's not like he was the anchor. Davis was a -14. LeBron was -9, and so on and so on. So all I'm saying is, Drummond wasn't necessarily the issue specifically, but you could see the game really changed in the second half when Wes Matthews comes in and they put AD at the 5. And by the way, AD stays on the floor at the 5 for a long time. He played 42 minutes. Did he come out in the fourth quarter?
No,
LeBron did.
Montrezl Harrell did not play in the second half at all.
Right, and Drummond didn't come back in after he left in his second run of the second, his regular run in the third quarter. So Davis plays 42 minutes. He doesn't come off the floor, plays a monster second half. And we talked about it with the Light Years guys. We talked about it with Wes Goldberg. Like the Lakers with AD at the 5, that's their lineup of death. Like that's their trump card that they can always throw at teams. I got the impression, Andy, that they were hoping they could sort of bludgeon Golden State to death with their size and Drummond and use it, and it just didn't work. But once they went to AD at the 5, it really clicked quickly.
Well, I mean, that's something we've talked about a lot, where as much as Frank Vogel has a preferred style, and I think his preferred style, all things being equal, is to try to overwhelm a team with size. And it's what they did a lot last year. It's what they've been trying to do a lot this year, before they, everybody was in and out of the lineup, and basically Frank Vogel was just playing who was literally available. But what we've seen from Frank Vogel is that he recognizes that all things are not equal all the time. And he is very willing to go away from whatever his orthodoxy is. Like he's not somebody that will force the issue to the point of hurting his own team because he has a philosophical idea of what you should be doing. Like what we saw during Phil Jackson's reign running the Knicks, where it was very clear this team had no business running the triangle, yet they were forcing this
come
upon
hell
everybody.
Or high water. That team was going to run the triangle because that's what Phil said.
So, I mean, I think it's something I was thinking about because I know there have been a lot of people questioning what appears to be a reluctance to play AD at the 5 more beyond whatever apprehensions people may think AD has about playing the 5, because for all of that narrative, it's become perfectly clear. If you ask the guy to do it, he's going to play center. It's not like he's going to be objecting to it or balking. I wonder actually if there's a little bit of reluctance on Vogel's part just because he's seen it so little this year because the team has barely had the opportunity to do it.
Seen that. Yeah, I think it's been like 10 minutes or something.
Right,
Somebody
like
actually
look. I mean, because it's always talked about as the Lakers' best lineup, which I think it is, except you still need to get reps executing it.
Well,
and
I don't. I'm not. And by the way, I'm not making up that number. I think it literally is. 10 minutes.
It was something that just sort of popped into my head tonight. Like I was wondering if that.
I don't think
bit.
that's it. I don't think that's it because he's seen it and he knows. And you don't. I think it's mostly you want to limit. It's not that he won't play that way, but you don't want to play him that way for 42 minutes. He played 42 minutes.
No, I get that.
And
but
so I'm not arguing
he seems reluctant to do it for like 7 minutes.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm arguing with the.
No, I know that.
Lakers
I'm just
Twitter here.
I'm clarifying though that discrepancy. That's
I think maybe that has a little bit to do with it, but on the flip side is they've played 20 minutes with Andre Drummond too. It's not like they have a little bit more time there, but not a ton. I just think it's a matter of trying to run the template as much as they can, that kind of matches what they did last year. And, last year they had centers on the floor for probably half, most of, or whatever of Drummond, of Davis's minutes. And, you can't, I don't think they want to, they're not going to lean on that for, 35 minutes a game. Now, the question I think is going to be how much and which ones. And that was the balance tonight. I didn't think that Drummond did anything wrong, really.
Just there was more spacing and just more room to operate. And I think that's for all the talk about how, the Lakers, if they have AD at the 5, it can become this like 4-out type thing. That's not really what was going on in this game at all. Like AD was still taking fair amount of jumpers.
They went in.
Right. They went in, and you also have, LeBron posting up at times, but either way, there's just more space to operate.
LeBron posted up in the first half too.
Right.
And to your point, Drummond was a plus. Drummond was a +4 in the second half in the limited time that he played. So
right, but
they made that little run at the beginning of the
posting
half.
up though, whether it's AD or whether it's I think often more effectively LeBron. When you have more spacing, it just becomes more difficult to try to send the help over there, and especially when you're talking about somebody like LeBron who can just pick defenses apart anyway. It's going to be an interesting balance to see what they do with some of this. At times, I think they're going to go away from their size altogether when it's obvious that they need to, or it's just obvious that
they played 27 minutes worth of center tonight, right? Wednesday night against the Warriors.
And I think other times Frank Vogel is going to be looking to try to make that pairing with AD and Drummond work because we've seen it work at times. I think also there's value in what Drummond can either theoretically do on the boards or also just getting other teams potentially in foul trouble, which we've seen him do before.
Right. They missed a tremendous amount of shots in the first half.
Yes.
Just a tremendous amount. And like in a world where the Lakers don't shoot 20%, for people not named Alex Caruso, and we'll talk about him before we get into the Suns. We'll do that in a second here. The rest of the team shot like 20%.
Right.
And so if they shoot 40%, which still isn't very good, everything looks different. The defense, the way they're defended looks different. And, the spacing looks different. All that stuff looks different. So I don't think you can take every lesson from this, but it focuses really intensely one of the major lineup questions that Vogel has in front of him. And, wouldn't shock me if you see a little Marc Gasol, depending on what you want offensively and all this kind of stuff. And I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to talk about this. We'll probably talk about it tomorrow. Because of what Andre Drummond has come to symbolize, that's where a lot of this debate is. It's just people just really, he is an avatar for the Lakers aren't doing what I want them to do.
As I said on Twitter, at Cam Brothers, among Laker fans, he is the scapegoat of scapegoats.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if he has anything to do with any of that stuff. Yeah. They're going to be ticked off at him when things go wrong. All right. So let's talk about the Suns, get some quick early thoughts on that series, but I also want to talk about Alex Caruso and
Wes Matthews,
who, by the way, was the guy who was playing instead of a center. And we will do all of that next. First, though, I do want to tell you that Bet Online, it's the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your sports action. Baseball season, it's in full swing. You got the NHL playoffs, you got the NBA playoffs, UFC and MMA action, Andy. So before the next pitch, before the next shot, before the next puck drop, go to Bet Online on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. You go to the website and you sign up today, receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Works at the mobile on your mobile device as well. 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts.
Locked on Lakers also brought to you by Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. They are covered in 100% chocolate, soft, easy to chew. Not going to call out the protein bars that frankly become a chore to chew, but you know who you are.
There's actually one called Chore to Chew.
It's an awful
terrible
marketing.
I'm glad they don't sponsor us.
Built Bars are healthy. They are great for the health conscious guy, whether you're trying to lose or maintain weight while indulging in a delicious treat. Low calorie, low sugar, high protein, high fiber, great for keto diets, great delicious flavors. You got 12 originals like raspberry, coconut, almond, salted caramel, banana bread, 6 new flavors, including cherry barcia. If you're a deadhead, you're going to love that one. Lemon almond cheesecake, cookies and cream. Perfect for someone like me who I like weird or seemingly weird combinations that end up tasting awesome. And what's great with Built Bar is just you don't get bored because you're not going to be eating the same thing over and over again. Go to BuiltBar.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your first order. Promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com.
So, Andy, we've talked a lot about how Anthony Davis and LeBron James have to elevate for the Lakers to be successful in the playoffs. And we saw it in the second half. The first half, they were not very good. And you got the results you did. In the second half, they were both much, much better. And they got the results that they did. Now, I'm still very concerned about LeBron's ankle. I think, there's, even if he can, didn't have a setback on Wednesday, even if he doesn't have a setback on Sunday, this is going to be the type of thing where you're always just worried and waiting for something to tweak that ankle again.
For that matter, by the way, whatever thing that Dennis Schroeder has to get his conditioning back from that is not COVID,
right.
Would like to see that progress because whatever, again, was not COVID, according to him.
On Wednesday.
Oof. He really looked like a guy that was just struggling with conditioning, which again,
I don't know. But see, I don't know. I don't know if he was still attacking the basket. He was doing. I don't know if he was struggling with conditioning or if he was just struggling. I hope it's the conditioning because or you're just actually no, I don't. I hope it's the other. They just had a bad game because if it's conditioning, you don't know how
here's
long that
here's what
takes to
made me
come
wonder.
around.
Here's what made me wonder if it was conditioning before we move
I mean,
on.
he has said that.
Right. It's partially that. And Frank Vogel said the same thing as well before we get to Caruso and Matthews. But also, I thought it was interesting that they began the game with KCP as the primary defender on Steph. And you really didn't see Schroeder doing a lot of that until the second half. And that stuck out to me just because the numbers on Schroeder, or the numbers with Schroeder on Curry this season were fantastic. I mean, he had done a phenomenal job this year guarding Curry. So you would think that you would, at least I would think, you would look to start out with that just to try to maybe get Curry into a bad rhythm.
I wouldn't have actually, only because if you're going to use Schroeder, and the numbers were good, but I don't think he was following around. I mean, again, like the number of possessions was relatively limited. I think that if you're going to use Schroeder as somebody who can initiate the offense and try to take some pressure off of LeBron and all of that stuff, you don't want him chasing Steph Curry around. Whereas KCP's job on offense is basically, move and then go stand in the corner and try to, get a dish off of a penetrating player. So that part I would have done the way that the Lakers did. And then we saw later in the game, Curry did pretty well in those moments where he was matched up with Schroeder. So
that also makes me wonder if there's a conditioning thing going.
Maybe that part didn't surprise me. We'll see what happens. He was not good, and hopefully on Sunday the Lakers certainly hope that he'll be better.
Well, he knows Chris Paul well. That can be an advantage. Played with him all last year.
Sure. But the other thing that we talk about a lot, and we'll see how we don't necessarily need to get super deep into the Phoenix series because we're going to be previewing it for tomorrow's show, as we mentioned. The other thing that we've talked a lot about is it's LeBron, it's AD, and someone. It's got to be someone else who can come and contribute and be a player that the other team needs to account for. And two guys that really stuck out to me, West came in and was a plus 17. Statistically, he wasn't dominant, but his impact was there, and the way he literally changed the layout of the floor was incredibly significant on both sides. Alex Caruso was outstanding.
Yes, he was.
Particularly in the first half. He was 5 for 5. I mentioned the Lakers as a team were shooting about 20-something%, except for Caruso, who went 5 for 5 in the first half. His defense was excellent all night. He was confident handling the ball. He was confident taking a shot. He was only 1 of 7, I should say, in the second half. But that's okay. He took the fact that he kept shooting and kept making himself important on that side, I thought was very significant. And the other guy that I thought stuck out in 23 minutes, not a huge statistical night, didn't put up 25 points, but he had 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and was moving all at Kuz.
Yeah.
And those two guys tonight, I thought were massive Wednesday night. And I texted this to you before during the game. I have a feeling that this version of Kuzma, where we're not paying that close attention to him because nobody expects him to score 18 points a game. Nobody needs him to. I have a feeling he's going to have a massive impact this postseason.
He very well could. I mean, he's been a much more, I think, consistent and comfortable player in his own role. Like even when the points aren't there, and his scoring can sometimes still be up and down, but I think his overall impact on a game and his ability to shape a game in different ways has been very consistent this year. He's also just become very reliable. Defensively, you can count on him now not to make a lot of mistakes, which is absolutely mind-boggling when you think about where his career began. And it's a real testament, I think, in part to the security he feels to after the commitment by the Lakers with the contract he got, but also I think just his maturity as a player and as a professional and his willingness to embrace what's needed of him to win. We mentioned West too, and he didn't play in the first half. He only played in the second half. And Frank Vogel said that the biggest thing he wanted to change beyond just, execute, make more baskets, that sort of thing, in the second half was he wanted the team to be more physical. And that was a big reason that he put West in. And you could see that physicality in the way he played defense. It probably also helps if you're looking for a guy to play physical defense in West, that maybe he doesn't pick up a couple fouls in the first half. But either way, though, it speaks to the professionalism. Like staying ready is a cliche, but for guys like Wes and Marc Gasol, and I guess, he plays every game, but increasingly someone like Kuzma, just that professionalism on this team and being around guys like LeBron and seeing that example, I think it rubs off. Even Jared Dudley and Markieff Morris, who didn't play at all in this game, apparently they lit into these guys at halftime, basically saying, get your heads out of your asses, man.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
It took them a minute to catch up, I think, to goal. You pointed it out, in the last segment. It took them a minute to catch up, I think, to the speed. I don't mean the up and down pace speed, but I mean sort of the speed and intensity of a team playing at a playoff level. Don't forget, they lost their first game last year.
Yeah,
in the playoffs. It's like it takes a second. And they weren't prepped for that, not by the coaching staff, but just mentally, whatever it was. They did not come out and match that that sort of energy and intensity and things like that. But the other thing, you talk about Wes and you talk about Kuz, and it is amazing that with Kuz that we're there, and we can hold, we can hold off on the big previewing for Phoenix. We'll do that tomorrow with Brendan Clean of Locked On Suns. But the last thing I wanted to say on this, like, those two guys, Wes, we've always known about his defensive versatility. Kuz, it's starting to become a real thing over the last year or so. But like Kuz being able to defend the way he does is going to staple Markieff Morris to the bench, because he can do all the stuff that Keefe can do, really, and provide much more versatility on offense. So it's a tremendous development that makes the Lakers' versatility on defense that much better. And it's something that I think is going to serve them well, particularly in the next series against Phoenix, where smaller lineups are probably going to be a thing. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Very well could be. Want to remind people, by the way, Friday, noon Pacific, we will be doing our locker room chat. Please be there. If you are there and have good questions to ask, we will not just read them. We will sometimes allow you to speak.
That's right.
Yeah, as long as you're not an asshat.
We're kingmakers,
because we have kicked some asshats out of the room, but just don't be that guy.
So that's coming again. Sign up for the YouTube channel. You get a lot of, obviously the podcasts themselves and clips, but also we're going to be starting to generate some YouTube only content that you want to make sure you're able to check out. And again, Brendan Clean, we're going to preview the Suns versus Lakers. We'll do that tomorrow, and we'll see everybody there.